The show's been going for a little while. I can't speak as to everybody else, but there are things in my life that are definitely more. I'm closer to 60 than 50. I had an accident a few years back that you got to witness on the show.
In the wild, cold heart of Alaska, where snow covers the ground for most of the year and silence feels heavy enough to crush you, lives a woman who has become a symbol of human strength, Sue Aikens. Her story is not one of luck or comfort, but one of survival, heartbreak, and determination. Born in Chicago in 1963, Sue's childhood was not filled with warmth or care. When she was only 12 years old, her mother made a decision that would change Sue's life forever. She left her in the remote wilderness of Alaska and disappeared. From that moment, Sue was forced to grow up faster than any child should. Alone in the cold, she learned how to fight for food, how to build a shelter, and how to survive nights where the wind screamed louder than wolves. That lonely beginning shaped her into someone who could endure anything. Sue often says that the wilderness became her teacher, her friend, and sometimes her only companion. While most children learned lessons in classrooms, Sue learned them from the freezing river, the biting snow, and the endless hunger. That hard start gave her scars, but it also gave her power, the power to survive no matter what life threw at her. Life did not get easier as Sue grew older. She got married 3 times, hoping each time that love would finally bring peace. But life seemed determined to test her again and again. Her first husband died of a brain tumor, leaving her broken and alone. Her second marriage ended in tragedy when her husband passed away in a car accident. The third one was even worse. She suffered from years of abuse before escaping that painful relationship. These experiences could have destroyed her spirit, but Sue refused to give up. She found strength in the same wilderness that had raised her. Nature was harsh but honest. It demanded respect and offered no false promises. Sue began to rebuild her life near the Arctic, finding peace in the rhythm of survival. The cold winds reminded her that she was still alive. The sound of wolves howling at night was no longer frightening but comforting. She often says that Alaska became her healing ground. The same isolation that once nearly killed her became her therapy. Through pain and loss, Sue learned that real strength is not about never falling. It's about standing back up every single time the world knocks you down. Sue eventually settled in a place called Geographic River Camp, located about 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. This is one of the most remote places on Earth, where winter temperatures can drop below -60 degrees Fahrenheit, and the nearest neighbor might be hundreds of miles away. Sue lived there completely alone, running a small camp for travelers and hunters. Every single day was a battle, chopping ice for water, fixing machines, keeping wild animals away, and surviving blizzards that could last for days. She didn't just live in the wild, she became part of it. Her daily life was far from what most people would call normal. Instead of morning traffic, she faced frozen rivers. Instead of office meetings, she fought off hungry bears. Yet, in her quiet way, Sue found peace in this dangerous isolation. She once said, "If I die out here, at least I die where I belong." For her, Alaska wasn't just home, it was freedom. She didn't want city lights or human noise. She wanted the endless sky, the howling wind, and the comfort of knowing she could survive on her own. That kind of life takes courage most people can't imagine. And it was this courage that caught the attention of television producers. In 2013, Sue's life changed when she was cast in the National Geographic reality series, Life Below Zero. The show followed the lives of people surviving in the harshest parts of Alaska, showing the raw reality of a world without comfort or technology. Viewers were immediately drawn to Sue. Her sharp wit, tough personality, and fearless honesty made her a standout star. Unlike others who might have faked emotions for the camera, Sue was always real. She laughed in the face of pain and spoke her truth even when it was ugly. Audiences around the world fell in love with the woman who fixed her snowmobiles in freezing weather and faced bears with a calm voice and a rifle in her hand. Fame, however, brought both light and darkness. Suddenly, the world knew who Sue Aikens was. People admired her strength, but few understood the cost of living that kind of life. Behind the cameras, Sue was still alone most nights, still battling the cold, and still carrying the weight of her past. Life Below Zero made her a star, but it didn't make survival any easier. It only added pressure to live up to the legend she had become. One of the most terrifying moments in Sue's life happened long before the cameras arrived. Years earlier, while living alone near Geographic, she was attacked by a grizzly bear. The beast came out of nowhere and mauled her severely, tearing into her arm and head. With no one around to help, Sue knew that if she didn't fight back, she would die. Somehow, through unimaginable pain, she crawled more than 70 yards to reach her rifle. Using her teeth to hold the weapon steady, she managed to shoot the bear. Then, bleeding and half-conscious, she radioed for help, but rescue took over 10 days to arrive. During that time, she tended to her wounds herself, sewing torn skin and stopping the bleeding with makeshift tools. When help finally came, the rescuers could hardly believe she was still alive. That attack became a symbol of her unbreakable spirit. For most people, it would have been the end. For Sue, it was just another chapter. The scars on her body became proof that she could survive anything, not just the wild, but life itself. It was this story that later inspired millions of fans, proving that strength isn't about muscles, but about willpower. As Life Below Zero gained worldwide popularity, Sue began to face new kinds of challenges behind the scenes. She claimed that producers often pushed her into unsafe situations just for dramatic footage. In 2017, she even filed a lawsuit against the show's production company, saying that her safety and mental health were being ignored for the sake of ratings. She described being told to drive snowmobiles on dangerous ice and perform tasks that risked her life. The lawsuit opened a window into the darker side of reality television, the side that most viewers never see. Even though the case was eventually settled quietly, it left a deep mark on Sue. She realized that even when surrounded by fame, she was still alone in her fight for respect and safety, but she didn't let bitterness take over. Instead, she became a voice for fairness in the entertainment industry. She reminded the world that behind every thrilling survival scene is a real human being, facing real danger. Her courage to speak out proved that she was not only a survivor of nature, but also of a powerful media machine. Once again, Sue showed the world that her spirit could not be broken. After years of struggle and fame, Sue began to focus more on healing, not just her body, but her heart. She started working on projects that brought her peace, like writing, mentoring, and speaking about survival and self-reliance. She also opened her Geographic camp to visitors who wanted to experience life in Alaska, teaching them how to survive and respect nature. Though she still lives in isolation most of the year, she found new ways to connect with people. Sue has said that her goal is not to escape humanity, but to understand it from a distance. Sue Aikens continues to live life on her own terms. She still runs her camp and occasionally appears on Life Below Zero, though she takes on fewer filming days to focus on her health. In recent years, she has spoken about the toll that decades of hard living have taken on her body, arthritis, old injuries, and fatigue. Yet, her mind remains sharp and her willpower unshaken. She often shares words of wisdom online and in interviews, reminding people that happiness doesn't come from comfort, it comes from courage. Sue's legacy goes beyond television. She represents the strength of every person who has ever been abandoned, hurt, or underestimated. Her story is not just about surviving in Alaska, it's about surviving life itself. In a world where many give up when things get hard, Sue stands as proof that even when everything is taken from you, you can still build a life worth living. Her laughter, her scars, and her courage are all part of a message that the world needs to hear. No matter how cold life gets, you can always find the fire within yourself. Sue Aikens' life is more than a TV story. It's a symbol of the unbreakable human spirit. Every chapter of her journey, from childhood pain to fame and solitude, shows that resilience is built one hardship at a time. She has lived through things most of us could never imagine: hunger, loss, attacks, and betrayal. Yet, she never turned bitter. Instead, she turned her pain into purpose. The wilderness taught her lessons that no classroom could ever teach: patience, respect, and the understanding that strength doesn't come from power, but from endurance. When we watch Sue walking alone across the frozen tundra, we see not just a woman surviving nature, but a woman who has mastered it. Her story continues to inspire millions of people who face their own struggles, reminding them that life's storms are not meant to destroy us, they are meant to shape us. In the silence of Alaska's endless ice, Sue Aikens stands as living proof that even the loneliest person can create a life full of meaning, courage, and hope. For Sue Aikens, every day in Alaska follows a rhythm that few people on Earth could maintain. The day starts before dawn, when the world outside is still frozen in silence. The first task is checking the fuel supply and generators, making sure her camp can stay warm and powered for another day. Then comes the water, not from a tap, but by cutting through layers of ice and melting snow in large pots over an open flame. Each movement, each task, is deliberate. There is no rush in the Arctic. Time moves differently here. The sky might remain dark for 20 hours in winter or glow endlessly in summer, but the work never changes. Sue says that living this way keeps her grounded. "Every job I do out here has a purpose," she once said. "Nothing is wasted, not time, not energy, not even mistakes." In this rhythm of survival, she finds peace. There are no emails, no bills, no social noise, only her and the land. She reads weather patterns, studies the movements of animals, and repairs her snow machines with parts she sometimes has to create from scrap. Her hands are marked by decades of work, cracked skin, old scars, and the signs of a life built from pure effort. Yet she takes pride in those marks. Each one tells a story, and each story reminds her that she is still capable. Survival here isn't about defeating nature, it's about living alongside it. And that partnership, built over years of hardship, has given Sue something that modern life rarely offers: peace through purpose. Living alone in the Arctic for most of her life has given Sue a unique philosophy about life and survival. She often says that the wild doesn't lie, it doesn't promise safety or love, but it always tells the truth. When she faces a blizzard or a hungry bear, she knows exactly what to expect. Nature doesn't cheat or pretend, it simply is. That honesty, she believes, is something missing from modern society. People live surrounded by noise, social pressure, and artificial comfort, forgetting how strong they really are. When you're out here, Sue once said, you either adapt or you die. But when you adapt, you realize how capable you actually are. Through her experiences, Sue has learned lessons that go far beyond survival. She's learned patience, because some storms last for weeks. She's learned humility, because in the wild, human power means nothing compared to nature's strength. And she's learned gratitude, because every sunrise after a storm feels like a miracle. She often describes the wilderness as her teacher, shaping her into a better version of herself. In the deep silence of the tundra, she's found answers that people spend their whole lives searching for. Her story teaches that sometimes, we have to step away from the noise of the world to hear the voice inside us. In the stillness of Alaska, Sue found not just survival, but understanding, the knowledge that life's meaning is not in what we own, but in what we overcome. While Sue's life seems powerful and inspiring, it's not without emotional cost. Isolation can be peaceful, but it can also be heavy. There are long nights when the wind howls across the tundra and loneliness sits beside her like an invisible guest. The silence that comforts her during the day can become deafening at night. Sue has admitted in interviews that she sometimes struggles with that quiet. There are nights when the only heartbeat you hear is your own, she said softly once, and you realize how small you are. Yet, she has found ways to cope. She talks to herself, to the animals, even to the sky. She listens to the rhythm of the wind and lets it remind her that she's part of something much larger than herself. Technology helps a little. Satellite internet, radios, and occasional phone calls connect her to the outside world. But deep down, Sue knows that she chose this life for a reason. Isolation, while painful, also brings clarity. It forces her to face her fears instead of running from them. In that solitude, she has learned self-acceptance. She no longer sees loneliness as an enemy, but as a companion that teaches resilience. While the world rushes to escape silence, Sue has learned to listen to it. And in that silence, she has found truth. That peace doesn't mean the absence of pain, but the strength to live with it. Over the years, Sue Aikens has become more than just a television personality. She's become a symbol of courage for millions of people around the world. Fans from all walks of life write to her, sharing how her story inspired them to face their own struggles. Some are battling illness, others grief or depression. Many say that watching Sue survive in the frozen wild helped them find hope in their own storms. She represents the idea that no matter how hard life gets, it's possible to keep going. Her humor, honesty, and toughness connect deeply with audiences who see in her the strength they wish they had. Sue often responds to her fans with humility. She reminds them that she's not a hero, she's just someone who refuses to quit. "I'm not special," she said in one interview. "I just do what needs to be done." But that simple statement is exactly what makes her special. She doesn't hide behind perfection. She admits to fear, to mistakes, to pain. That honesty is what people love about her. It's real, raw, and deeply human. Beyond the fame and the cameras, Sue's greatest gift to her fans is hope.